poor girl offers to help young millionaire with a difficult calculation. His response is unexpected. The alarm clock went off at 5:30 a.m. just like every other day. Ryan Blackwood no longer needed to hear it. His eyes were already open 5 minutes earlier, staring at the white ceiling of his bedroom. 15 seconds later, the automatic curtains opened, revealing the view of the still dark city, dotted with lights that never went out. Another day, he muttered to himself, rubbing his face with his cold hands. The Blackwood mansion was silent at that hour. Ryan liked that. No questions, no unnecessary conversations, just the sound of his own footsteps on the marble floor. He put on his robe and went down to the kitchen, coffee ready, toast made, an apple cut into perfect slices. Mrs. Morris, the housekeeper for over 20 years, knew exactly how he liked it. He never had to say a word. In the dining room, he sat alone at the head of the long oak table. 20 empty chairs. His father had insisted on that table when Ryan was still a child. "One day you'll understand the value of having a place to seat important people," he had said. Years later, Ryan understood the value, but the chairs remained empty. As he ate, he reviewed the numbers on his tablet. Blackwood Industries had grown 12% in the last quarter. It wasn't enough. His father expected 15%. Ryan took the last sip of coffee and set the cup down on the table with a little more force than necessary. At 6:15 a.m., he was in the shower. Hot water, 7 minutes timed. At 6:30 a.m., he chose a grey suit from among 10 others that were practically identical. At 6:45 a.m., he got into the black Mercedes where Thomas, the chauffeur, was already waiting in silence. "Good morning, Mr. Ryan," Thomas said, looking in the rearview mirror. "Good morning, Thomas. Head office, please." Those were the only words exchanged during the entire drive. Ryan preferred to occupy his mind with the financial reports he needed to review that morning. Thomas already knew what to do: drive in silence, keep the temperature at 70 degrees, radio off. The car glided through the still quiet city streets. Through the window, Ryan watched ordinary people starting their days. A man opening a bakery, a woman walking a dog, sleepy teenagers waiting for the school bus. Simple lives. For a very brief second, he felt something like curiosity. What would it be like? He didn't finish the thought. The car was already entering the underground garage of the imposing glass and steel building that housed the headquarters of Blackwood Industries. "Return at 9 p.m., sir?" Thomas asked. "Yes, thank you." The private elevator doors opened directly onto the executive floor. His secretary, Mrs. Peterson, was already at her desk, efficient as always. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood. Your father called. He asked you to call him back as soon as you arrived." Ryan nodded, without breaking his stride. His office was a large room with a panoramic view of the city, minimalist, functional, impeccable. He sat at his desk and took a deep breath before picking up the phone. "Father, I got your message." Ryan. "The numbers in the quarterly report are disappointing. No good morning, no how are you. Straight to the point, Robert Blackwood's trademark. We grew 12% in a recessionary market. That's insufficient. We promised the shareholders 15%. Your management is falling short." The familiar feeling of weight settled on Ryan's shoulders. 25 years old, executive vice president for $3, and he still felt like a boy being scolded for bad grades. "We'll recover next quarter. I have some projects that—" "I don't want to hear about projects. I want results. The board meeting is in 2 weeks. By then, fix this." The call ended abruptly. Ryan placed the phone back on its cradle and looked out the window. The city was now fully awake, frantic. At 8 a.m., the team of directors began to arrive for the morning meeting. 10 men and 2 women, all with identical briefcases, all with carefully neutral expressions. Ryan watched them enter the meeting room through the glass walls. Subdued smiles, formal handshakes, no one was there for friendship. As he entered the room, the conversations died down. Ryan sat at the head of the table. "Good morning, everyone. Let's get straight to the point. The numbers are not good." The meeting lasted 2 hours. Spreadsheets, graphs, projections, each director defending their department. no one taking responsibility. Ryan listened more than he spoke, observing how they avoided his gaze when he mentioned cost cuts. I think it's clear what needs to be done. I want a complete action plan by tomorrow. No excuses. When everyone had left, Ryan remained in the empty room. In the reflection of the glass, he saw a young man in an impeccable suit with well-cut brown hair and an upright posture. A successful man by all standards. Why then did he feel this emptiness? At 1 p.m., Mrs. Peterson came in with a salad that Ryan hadn't ordered, but he ate it anyway while reviewing contracts. At 4 p.m., more meetings. At 7 p.m., a video conference with investors from Asia. Fake smiles, measured promises, carefully chosen words. When he finally left the building, the city was already showing its nocturnal side. Office lights still on, like his, people rushing home, to families, perhaps, to something more than empty walls. Thomas was waiting with the car. Straight home, sir. Yes, Thomas. The ride back was identical to the morning's. Same silence, same thoughts. Upon arriving at the mansion, the lights were already on, as if someone were waiting for him. But Ryan knew he would only find dinner prepared and put away, the house cleaned and tidied by hands he never saw. He ate alone, again at the head of the large table, a plate of perfectly grilled salmon, steamed vegetables, tasteless food for a colorless day. He went up to his room and took off his watch. 10:10 p.m. Free time before bed. For what? He turned on the giant TV on the wall but paid no attention. He picked up a book, read the same page 3 times. At some point, he realized he was standing by the window, looking at the small points of light in the distant houses, people living, talking, laughing. He was so used to commanding, demanding results, being efficient, that he had forgotten what it was like to simply exist. At 11 p.m., he lay down in the king-size bed. He set the alarm for 5:30 a.m. Tomorrow would be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. His last thought before falling asleep was a simple question he had never asked himself. Is this all there is? The kitchen of the Blackwood mansion came to life long before the rest of the house. At 4:30 in the morning, Martha Hayes was already turning on the lights, tying her white apron around her waist and starting to prepare her employer's breakfast. Emily, sweetie, don't forget your coat, it's chilly outside. Little Emily, only 5 years old, rubbed her light-colored eyes as she settled into a kitchen chair. Her blonde hair, still messy from sleep, fell over her face in rebellious strands. Mummy, can I take my notebook today? Martha smiled at her daughter as she beat the eggs for Mr. Ryan's omelette. So of course you can, but remember what I always say. Emily finished the sentence, mimicking her mother's serious tone. Don't bother Mr. Ryan, sweetie. He has a lot of work to do. They both laughed. It was almost a morning ritual between them. Martha had been working at the Blackwood mansion for 6 years, ever since her husband had left them. The pay was good, and Mr. Ryan allowed Emily to stay on the property while her mother worked. It was either that or pay for a babysitter who would consume half of what she earned. Emily jumped from her chair and ran to her backpack, a faded blue bag she carried with the care of a treasure. From inside, she pulled out a hardcover notebook with worn edges and yellowed pages, a gift she had found in the public library's discard pile. Look, Mummy, I found a new way to do that math problem. Martha glanced over her shoulder, seeing her daughter's neat handwriting and a series of numbers and symbols she didn't fully understand. Emily had a way with numbers that surprised her. She never had to teach the girl to count or do simple sums. She just learned by observing, asking, exploring. You're so smart. Now put that away and eat your cereal. We need to be quiet when Mr. Ryan comes down. The kitchen was Martha's domain, but the rest of the house belonged to the silence her employer demanded. Emily knew this. From a very young age, she had learned to move like a shadow through the mansion's corridors, to speak in whispers, to exist without being noticed. At 5:30, Mr. Ryan's alarm would go off. At 5:45, he would come down for breakfast. Martha finished the final touches while Emily, already fed, sat in the corner of the pantry with her notebook. It was her favorite hiding spot, close to her mother but out of sight. Through the crack in the door, Emily watched. She saw Mr. Ryan come in every day, sit alone, eat without haste and without pleasure. He seemed so sad, not a crying kind of sad, but a not smiling kind of sad. Emily couldn't remember ever seeing her boss truly smile, not like her mother smiled. "Why does he never smile, Mommy?" she asked once after Ryan had left. "Some people carry burdens we can't see, sweetie. Mr. Ryan has a lot of responsibilities." Emily didn't quite understand what responsibilities were, but she imagined them as heavy packages on the shoulders of the always serious man. After breakfast, the mansion would be empty. Mr. Ryan would go to his office in the city, and the two of them had more freedom to move around. Martha cleaned the upstairs rooms, while Emily followed her, sometimes helping with small tasks, sometimes just watching. "Mommy, what's in that room?" she asked, pointing to an always closed door at the end of the hallway. "That's Mr. Ryan's office. We never go in there without permission." But Emily's curiosity was greater than the rules. One day, when her mother was busy with the laundry, the girl approached the mysterious door. It was just ajar. She looked both ways and, with her heart pounding, pushed it open a few inches. The office was a large room, with shelves full of books and a large desk by the window. What caught Emily's attention most were the papers scattered on the desk, sheets upon sheets covered in numbers, graphs, and symbols that seemed to dance before her eyes. She couldn't resist. She tiptoed in and approached the desk. Her blue eyes sparkled at this new world. She pulled up one of the chairs and climbed on it to get a better look. They were calculations, lots of them, some similar to the ones she did in her notebook, others more complicated. Careful not to mess anything up, Emily leafed through the papers, trying to understand the numbers. Without realizing it, she picked up a pencil and began to make notes in the margin of one of the documents. The symbols made sense to her, as if they were telling a story only she could read. "Emily, what are you doing in here?" Her mother's frightened voice brought her back to reality. Martha was at the door, her eyes wide. "I'm sorry, Mommy. I just wanted to see... Get out of there right now. If Mr. Ryan finds out..." Emily quickly got down from the chair, but in her haste, she dropped the pencil on the floor. The sound seemed to echo through the empty room. "I was just looking at the numbers. They're beautiful." Martha took a deep breath, trying to calm down. She checked that everything was in its place and pulled her daughter by the hand. "Never come in here again without permission. Do you understand? Mr. Ryan doesn't like people touching his things." That night, in her small room at the back of the mansion, Emily opened her old notebook. She drew from memory the symbols she had seen in the office and tried to reproduce some of the calculations. She didn't fully understand what they meant, but there was something about them that fascinated her. In the following weeks, Emily became even more observant. When Mr. Ryan brought work home, she would watch him from the hallway, seeing how he frowned at certain papers, how he sighed when something didn't work out. Once, she found a crumpled piece of paper in the hallway trash can. She smoothed it out carefully and discovered more numbers, crossed out forcefully. She hid it in her notebook, and that night tried to understand what had gone wrong in those calculations. Emily began to create her own system. In her notebook, she divided the pages into sections: Mr. Ryan's problems, my problems, and ideas. The last part was her favorite. There, she invented math problems for herself, created patterns, and made drawings with numbers. "You and that notebook," Martha would say, ruffling her daughter's hair. "One of these days I'll think you prefer numbers to people." But that wasn't true. Emily loved people. She loved observing them, understanding them. And in her child's mind, Mr. Ryan was the most interesting puzzle in the mansion. A man who lived surrounded by wealth, but seemed poorer than anyone she knew. "Mommy," she asked one night, as Martha tucked her into bed, "do you think Mr. Ryan has any friends?" Martha paused for a moment, considering the question. "I think he has business associates, partners." "That's not the same as friends," Emily concluded, hugging her notebook. "No, sweetie, it's not the same thing." Emily closed her eyes, imagining a world where the numbers in her notebook could somehow help that sad man find friends. Maybe, she thought before falling asleep, she could be his friend. But then she remembered her mother's words, which echoed in her mind. Don't bother Mr. Ryan, sweetie. He has a lot of work to do. The week started worse than usual for Ryan. The board meeting was approaching, and his father increased the pressure with every call. The numbers weren't adding up, and the finance department seemed unable to find the flaw in the projections. Let's review this one more time, Ryan said on the phone. I need these calculations corrected by the end of the day. No exceptions. He hung up with more force than necessary and rubbed his temples. For the first time in years, he decided to bring work home. He no longer trusted his team to solve the problem, and the hours at the office weren't being enough. That afternoon, upon arriving at the mansion, he ignored his usual ritual. He didn't change clothes, didn't have dinner. He went straight to his private office, carrying a heavy briefcase and his laptop. Good evening, Mr. Ryan, Martha greeted, surprised to see him home so early. Would you like me to serve dinner? No, thank you, Martha. I don't want to be disturbed. The office door closed with a click, and Martha sighed. She knew that tone. She went back to the kitchen, where Emily was quietly coloring in a math book she had found at a church sale. Mr. Ryan is home, Martha commented. He seems worried. Let's be very quiet, okay? Emily nodded, but her eyes sparkled with curiosity. It was rare to see her boss home at this hour. Inside the office, Ryan spread papers across the desk. Spreadsheets, graphs, financial projections. Somewhere there was an error that compromised the entire quarterly plan. If he didn't find it, the meeting with the board would be a disaster. The hours passed. 9 o'clock, 10, 11. Martha put Emily to bed, but the girl couldn't sleep. Through the crack in her door, she could see the light still on in Mr. Ryan's office. It was past midnight when Emily, in her star-patterned pajamas and her inseparable notebook under her arm, walked silently down the hallway. The mansion was dark and quiet. Her mother was already asleep, exhausted from the long day's work. The office door was ajar. Emily peeked in and saw Ryan sitting at the desk, his head in his hands, papers scattered in front of him. He looked so defeated, so different from the always controlled man she saw every morning. Without much thought, Emily pushed the door open slightly. The soft creak made Ryan lift his head. Who's there? He asked, his voice tired. Emily froze for a second, but then took a step forward into the light. It's me, sir. Emily. Ryan blinked, as if trying to remember who this small blonde figure was. Martha's daughter, Emily added, clutching the notebook to her chest. Oh, Ryan said, running a hand over his face. Shouldn't you be in bed? Yes, sir. But I saw the light on and... Emily hesitated, then pointed to the papers. Do you look sad about those numbers? Ryan looked at the girl with a mixture of surprise and irritation. He was about to send her back to bed when he noticed the notebook she was holding. The worn edges, marked pages, the cover faded from use. What's that? He asked, pointing to the notebook. Emily smiled shyly. My number book. I do math in it. A 5-year-old girl with a math notebook. The image was so unexpected that Ryan momentarily forgot his problem. Math? What kind of math? Emily approached the desk, still cautious. All kinds. Addition, multiplication. I'm learning division now. Just then, Martha appeared at the door, still tying her robe. Her face paled when she saw Emily in the office. Mr. Ryan, forgive me, I didn't know. Emily, come here right now. It's all right, Martha, Ryan said, surprising himself. She's not bothering me. Martha hesitated, caught off guard. Never in 6 years had her boss allowed interruptions during his work. Even so, sir, it's past her bedtime. Emily, let's go. Emily glanced at the papers on Ryan's desk. Her small brow furrowed as she saw a series of numbers circled in red. Are those the calculations that are wrong? She asked, pointing. Ryan followed the girl's finger, surprised by her observation. Yes, there's something wrong with these numbers, but... Can I try? Emily interrupted, her blue eyes shining with genuine interest. Martha let out a muffled gasp. Emily, don't be cheeky. Mr. Ryan has important work to do. It's not a game for children. But Ryan, exhausted and out of options, did something that surprised even himself. He pulled up a chair and placed it next to his. "Let her stay, Martha. Maybe a fresh pair of eyes will help." Martha stood frozen at the door, not knowing how to react. Emily, on the other hand, climbed onto the chair with agility, placed her notebook on the desk and leaned over Ryan's papers. For a few minutes, the office was silent. Ryan watched the girl who, with her brow furrowed in concentration, ran her finger along the lines of numbers. Occasionally, she made quick notes in her own notebook. "The problem is here," she said finally, pointing to a column of numbers. "And here too, the values are swapped, and that makes everything else wrong." Ryan took the paper, skeptical. He examined the spot Emily indicated, and after a few mental calculations, felt a wave of surprise. The girl was right. The finance department had inverted two crucial variables, causing a cascading error in all the projections. How did you see that?" he asked, trying to hide his astonishment. Emily shrugged, as if it were obvious. "So the numbers have to make sense together. These ones were fighting with each other. Look, if you put this one here," she scribbled something on a blank piece of paper, "and this one here, it all fits. It's like a puzzle." Ryan quickly redid the calculations on his calculator. The results matched Emily's suggested corrections perfectly. The solution was so simple that he felt almost embarrassed for not having seen it before. "You're right," he said finally, keeping his tone neutral despite his surprise. "The error was exactly where you pointed it out." Emily smiled, proud. Martha, still at the door, watched the scene with a mixture of awe and concern. "All right, Emily. You've helped Mr. Ryan. Now let's go, it's very late." Ryan looked at the clock, almost 1 in the morning. He had lost track of time. "Yes, you'd better go to bed," he agreed, closing the folder with the documents. "And thank you, Emily." The girl climbed down from the chair, hugging her notebook. "You're welcome, Mr. Ryan. Numbers are fun when they're not fighting." Martha took her daughter's hand and led her out of the office. In the hallway, out of Ryan's earshot, she knelt to be at Emily's level, her face serious. "Never do that again. Do you understand? Never go into Mr. Ryan's office unless you're called." "But I helped him, Mommy." He was sad about the numbers. "It doesn't matter." Martha held her daughter's shoulders firmly. "We are not to bother our employer. Our job is to be invisible in this house. If he gets upset, we could lose our job, our home. Do you understand that?" Emily looked down, clutching her notebook. "Yes, Mommy. Promise you won't do it again." "I promise," Emily murmured, without much conviction. Martha sighed, knowing that tone all too well. She led her daughter back to her room, thinking about what she had just witnessed. How had her little Emily, with no formal education, solved a problem that had left Mr. Ryan in such a state? In the office, Ryan put away the documents with a strange feeling. He was used to being the smartest person in the room, to having all the answers. But a 5-year-old child had seen something that he and his entire team of educated professionals had failed to see. Before turning off the light, his gaze fell on a doodle Emily had left on one of the papers. It wasn't just numbers. It was a small drawing of a smiling face next to the correction. A detail so small, so childish, so human. For the first time in weeks, Ryan felt the corners of his mouth curve slightly upward. The board meeting went better than Ryan had expected. The corrected calculations revealed a much more favorable outlook for the company, and even his father showed something close to satisfaction. For the first time in months, Ryan returned to the mansion without that feeling of weight on his shoulders. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ryan," Martha greeted, surprised to see him arrive earlier than usual. "How did something happen?" "No, Martha, the meeting ended early, that's all." Ryan hung his coat on the coat rack by the entrance. He hesitated for a moment, then added, "Is Emily around?" Martha almost dropped the dishcloth she was holding. "Emily? Yes, sir, she's in the laundry room folding some towels." Ryan nodded and headed to his room. Martha stood in the same spot, a confused expression on her face. In 6 years, her boss had never asked about her daughter. That evening, during dinner, Ryan ate without rushing. Normally, he avoided any unnecessary conversation with the staff. But today, he did something different. "Martha, the food is especially good today." "Thank you, sir." Martha replied, pouring him more water. Her hands trembled slightly. Your daughter? Does she attend a school? Martha set down the water pitcher, surprised by the question. Not regularly, sir. We can't afford a private school, and the local public school. She hesitated. It's not a good place. I teach her what I can at home. Ryan nodded without commenting. He finished his meal in silence, but his thoughts were far away. He remembered the ease with which little Emily had identified the error in his calculations, the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about numbers. 3 days later, upon returning from the office, Ryan stopped by the kitchen before going up to his room. Martha, I'll be working from home tomorrow. I'll need some help with a few spreadsheets. Could your daughter assist me for an hour? Martha was speechless for a few seconds. Emily, sir, but she's only 5 years old. I'm aware. But she has a natural talent with numbers. It would be helpful. Martha opened and closed her mouth several times before managing to reply, If you think she can help, of course. The next morning, Emily was more dressed up than usual. Martha had combed her blonde hair into a neat braid and dressed her in her best blue dress. Before taking her to Ryan's office, she knelt before her daughter. Remember, Emily, only answer what he asks. Don't talk too much, don't interrupt him, and when he says you're finished, thank him politely and leave. Emily nodded solemnly, hugging her worn notebook. Yes, Mommy? Martha knocked on the office door and, after hearing Ryan's voice, opened it. Emily entered with small, hesitant steps, her eyes lowered. Good morning, Mr. Ryan, she said in a low voice. Ryan looked up from his papers and gestured to the chair in front of his desk. Good morning, Emily. Please, have a seat. Martha lingered at the door for a moment, watching her daughter climb onto the chair that was too big for her. After a discreet nod from Ryan, she left, leaving the door ajar. The first few minutes were awkward. Ryan showed Emily some simple spreadsheets, asking her to check if the numbers were correct. The girl worked in silence, focused, only pointing out occasional small errors. This should be 437, not 473, she said, pointing to a cell on the spreadsheet. Ryan checked and nodded. It was a simple typo, but one that many adults would have missed. How did you learn math, Emily? He finally asked. The girl looked up, surprised by the question. By myself, sir, with books. What books? Emily hesitated, then opened her old notebook. Between the pages were newspaper clippings, loose sheets from textbooks, and exercises copied by hand. These, I find them at the library, sometimes in the school's trash when we walk by. Ryan picked up one of the clippings. It was an intermediate-level math logic problem, with careful notes in the margins made by Emily herself. And you understand all this? Emily shrugged. Not all of it, but I keep trying until I do. What followed was an hour of conversation more fluid than Ryan had expected. Emily, sensing his genuine interest, began to speak more freely about how she discovered patterns in numbers, how she created her own problems in her notebook. It's like the numbers tell stories, she explained, her blue eyes shining. When they're arranged the right way, they make sense. When they're not, it's like a confusing story. Ryan listened with growing attention. There was something in the way this child described mathematics that reminded him of his own long-forgotten passion for numbers. Before they became just tools for profit and competition, I think I know what you mean, he commented, surprising himself with the sincerity in his voice. When Martha returned to get Emily, she found something she never expected to see. Her daughter sitting comfortably in the chair, excitedly explaining something to Ryan, who was listening with genuine interest. Pardon me, Mr. Ryan, it's been over an hour. Ryan looked at the clock, surprised. Indeed, I didn't notice the time fly. He turned to Emily. Thank you for your help, Emily. It was enlightening. Emily climbed down from the chair with a smile. You're welcome, Mr. Ryan. It was fun. In the following days, a new routine was established in the Blackwood mansion. Ryan began to work from home at least twice a week, and on each of those occasions, he asked for Emily's help for a few hours. The sessions, initially focused only on checking numbers, soon turned into something more. As Emily went, what do you think of this chart? Ryan would ask, showing her a presentation he was preparing. "The colors are pretty, but it's hard to understand what the numbers mean," she would reply, with the direct honesty of children. Ryan would redesign the chart, considering her observations. It was strange, he thought, to value the opinion of a 5-year-old child. But there was something in the way Emily saw the world, without filters and complications, that brought clarity. During one of these sessions, Ryan noticed that Emily seemed less cheerful than usual. Her eyes constantly drifted to the window, where the rain was falling in thick sheets. "Something wrong, Emily?" The girl bit her lip, hesitant. "It's just that. There was supposed to be a book fair at the library today. Mommy promised to take me, but with this rain..." Ryan looked at the storm outside. He thought about the commitments he had, the calls he needed to make. Then he looked at the disappointed expression on the little girl's face. "What kind of books were you hoping to find?" he asked, surprised at his own interest. Emily's eyes lit up. "Math books, and maybe a science one. The librarian said they would have books donated by schools, some almost new." Ryan looked at Emily's old notebook, at the carefully glued clippings, at the notes made with such care. "If your mother allows it," he said slowly, "I can drive you both there in my car." Emily's expression went from surprise to joy in seconds. "Really? You would do that?" Ryan nodded, trying to seem casual, as if offering a ride to his housekeeper's daughter was something he did normally. "I have some business to take care of in the city anyway." It wasn't true, but suddenly the idea of spending the entire afternoon in that silent mansion seemed unbearable. Martha was shocked by the offer, but didn't dare refuse. 40 minutes later, the unimaginable happened. Ryan Blackwood parked his Mercedes in front of a small local library, with Emily and Martha in the back seat. "I'll wait in the car," he said, turning on his laptop. "Take as long as you need." But 15 minutes later, the rain had subsided, and Ryan found himself walking towards the library. He told himself he just needed to stretch his legs. He found Emily crouched before a table of used books, flipping through an advanced math volume, far beyond what would be appropriate for her age. Martha was a few feet away, checking out more suitable children's books. "Find anything interesting?" Ryan asked, approaching. Emily looked up, surprised to see him there. This one has beautiful equations," she replied, showing him a differential calculus book. Ryan took the book, flipping through it with a slight smile. "I studied with a book like this in college." "You studied math?" Emily asked, her eyes wide. "Business and finance. But I always liked the math part." For an hour, Ryan did something he hadn't done in years. He lost himself among shelves of books, talking with someone about something other than business or profits. He helped Emily choose a few volumes appropriate for her level, but also included 1 or 2 more advanced ones for when you're ready. When they left the library, Emily was carrying a stack of books that almost hid her. Ryan, without much thought, reached out and took half of them. "Let me help." Martha watched the scene in silent astonishment. In 6 years of working for Ryan Blackwood, she had never seen him carry anything other than his own briefcase. On the way back, Emily talked non-stop about the books, about the problems she wanted to solve, about how she couldn't wait to show Mrs. Wilson, the librarian, what she would learn. Ryan listened, responding occasionally. There was something about the girl's excitement that was contagious. For a moment, he remembered what it was like to feel that kind of enthusiasm for something. When they arrived at the mansion, Ryan carried the books to the small back room where Martha and Emily lived. He had never been there before. It was a simple but cozy space, with plants on the windowsills and Emily's drawings on the walls. "Thank you, Mr. Ryan," Emily said, carefully placing the books on a makeshift shelf made of crates. "You're welcome, Emily." That night, Ryan had dinner in his usual spot, at the head of the large empty table. But his thoughts were in the small back room, where he imagined Emily poring over her new books, discovering worlds through numbers. The next morning, during breakfast, Ryan did something unprecedented. "Martha, about that public school you mentioned," he began as he methodically cut his toast. "What exactly are the problems?" Martha, in the middle of pouring coffee, hesitated. "It's too big of a school, with too few teachers, sir. The classes have almost 40 children, and the neighborhood, it's not very safe." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. And the private schools in the area, have you looked into them? Martha placed the coffee pot on the table carefully. They are all beyond my means, Clarissa. Ryan took a sip of coffee, keeping his eyes on the cup. Emily has a natural talent. It would be a waste not to develop it properly. Martha wrung her hands in her apron, not knowing what to say. Ryan continued, as if talking to himself. Talents like that are rare. With the right guidance, who knows where she could go? That night, in his office, Ryan did something he hadn't done in years. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk and took out an old photo album. He ran his fingers over the dusty cover before opening it. On the first page, a boy of about 8 years old smiled, holding a math trophy. His eyes shone with the same enthusiasm that Ryan now recognized in Emily's eyes. When he was that child, he dreamed of being a mathematician, maybe a professor. He loved solving problems, finding patterns, discovering the elegance hidden in numbers. But his father had other plans. Math is a tool, not a career, he always said. All Blackwoods build empires, not equations. Ryan closed the album and looked out the window at the dark night. Somewhere in the back of his mind, an idea was beginning to form. An idea about numbers, wasted talents, and second chances. The following weeks brought a new routine to the Blackwood mansion. The work sessions between Ryan and Emily became part of daily life, and no one was surprised anymore to see the two of them together in the office, or, occasionally, in the garden when the weather permitted. On a Sunday afternoon, something rare happened. Ryan decided not to go to the office. It was a sunny spring day, and he suggested they talk on the back terrace where Martha grew some flowers. Emily arrived carrying her books and her inseparable old notebook. We don't have to work today, Ryan said, pointing to a table with lemonade and cookies. We can just talk. Emily looked at him with curiosity, then at the cookies. She climbed onto the chair with a smile. My mom made these cookies yesterday. They're the best. Ryan poured a glass of lemonade for her and one for himself. It was strange how, in just a few months, his relationship with this child had transformed. From a distant employer to, what exactly, a mentor, a friend? How are the new books? He asked, biting into a cookie. Martha really had a talent in the kitchen. Wonderful. Emily swung her legs, excited. I finished the one on fractions and started the one on geometry. There are incredible shapes in there. And school? Your mother mentioned you went to visit some last week. Emily's smile faded a little. There were 3 schools. The first one was big and beautiful, with a huge library. The second had a science lab. The third had a covered court. It sounds like you liked them. Emily looked down at her glass of lemonade. I did, but Mommy was sad afterward. I heard her crying at night. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. He knew the reason for Martha's tears. Why do you think she was sad? Emily fiddled with her napkin, folding it into precise geometric shapes, a habit Ryan had noticed. Because those schools cost a lot of money. Mommy explained to me that even working every day, she couldn't afford it. Ryan nodded, not knowing what to say. He was well aware of the tuition fees at those schools, insignificant for someone like him, impossible for someone like Martha. But it's okay, Emily continued, forcing a smile. I can keep learning with my books. And Mrs. Wilson from the library lets me stay there all day when Mommy has to work somewhere else. Somewhere else? Yes. Besides working here, Mommy cleans houses on Wednesdays and bakes cakes to order on weekends. Ryan put down his glass, surprised. He didn't know Martha had other jobs. On second thought, he had never wondered how she lived, what her struggles were, what she did besides serve his household. And where do you stay when she's at these other jobs? Emily shrugged. Sometimes I go with her and stay quiet. In the big houses, people don't even notice I'm there. Other times I stay at the library or with Mrs. Patel from the corner store. Ryan imagined Emily sitting in a corner with her old notebook while her mother cleaned strangers' houses. The image deeply disturbed him. That must be hard for you. Not really. I have my books. And Mommy always finds a safe place for me. The simplicity with which Emily accepted the hardships of her life made Ryan feel a pang of shame. He, who had everything, often found reasons to complain. She, who had so little, seemed grateful for every small thing. The hardest part, Emily continued, now in a low voice, is when Mommy gets sick. Does your mother get sick often? Last winter, she got a very bad flu. She couldn't work, but she also couldn't stop. She said if she stopped, we wouldn't make the rent money. Emily picked up another cookie. She coughed a lot and was always tired, but she kept working. I wish I could help more. Ryan's discomfort grew. He vaguely remembered Martha looking unwell the previous winter, but hadn't paid it any mind. After all, she continued to perform her duties efficiently. It had never occurred to him to ask if she was okay. And your father, does he help you? Emily's face grew serious. I don't have a father. I mean, I do have Tuoi, but he left when I was a baby. Mommy says he wasn't ready to have a family. Ryan nodded, not knowing what to say. His own family had its problems. A demanding and distant father, an absent mother who preferred traveling through Europe to spending time at home, but he had never lacked anything material. He never had to worry about the next rent payment or if there would be enough food. But we're okay, Emily added, with a surprising maturity for a 5-year-old. Mommy says we're a small but strong team. Your mother seems like an incredible person. She's the best person in the world, Emily declared with conviction. She works so hard so I can have nice things. Do you know what she told me once? What? That all the extra money she makes goes into my future box. It's a little blue box where she keeps coins and bills for my education. Emily smiled. I show her all the math I learn to prove the money is being well spent. Ryan felt a lump in his throat. He thought of his own future, carefully planned since before his birth. Elite university, a position in the company, an ascending career, all guaranteed by the Blackwood name and the family fortune. And what do you want to be when you grow up, Emily? The girl's blue eyes shone. A famous mathematician. I want to solve problems that no one can solve. Or maybe a scientist. Or a math teacher, to teach other kids. Those are admirable goals. And you, sir, did you always want to work with numbers? The innocent question caught Ryan by surprise. No one had asked him about his desires for so long that he had almost forgotten what it was like to have them. Actually, when I was about your age, I wanted to be a mathematician too. I loved solving complex problems. And why didn't you? Ryan looked towards the horizon beyond the property wall. My family had other plans for me. My father's company needed a successor. But couldn't you be both? A mathematician who also takes care of the company. Ryan smiled at the simplicity of the child's logic. We don't always get to choose our path, Emily. Sometimes other people choose for us. That sounds sad, Emily commented, frowning. Mommy always says I can be whatever I want, as long as I work hard for it. Your mother is wise. They sat in silence for a few moments, Ryan lost in thoughts of untrodden paths, Emily drawing geometric figures in the condensation on her glass. Mr. Orion, she said finally, you're a rich person, aren't you? The direct question surprised him again. Yes, I suppose so. And does being rich make you happy? Ryan faced the child before him, disconcerted by the simplicity and depth of the question. No one had ever asked him that. I don't know, he answered honestly. I've never known any other reality. I think, Emily said slowly, that being rich must be good because you can buy new books and you don't have to worry about the rent. But it also seems lonely. This house is so big and you're always alone. The words hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. That was it exactly. His life was materially complete and emotionally empty. He had everything and at the same time nothing. You're very observant, Emily. Mommy says I talk too much, she laughed. Sorry if I was nosy. You weren't. In fact, it's refreshing. People usually aren't so honest with me. Emily tilted her head, curious. Why? Lying isn't nice. In the adult world, especially in business, people often say what they think you want to hear, not what they really think. That sounds confusing, Emily concluded, finishing her glass of lemonade. Just then, Martha appeared on the terrace. Emily, time for your bath. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Ryan. No problem, Martha. Oh, we were just talking. Can I come back after my bath? Emily asked hopefully. Ryan looked at his watch. He had a video conference in an hour, reports to review, emails to answer. His normal life was calling him back. Maybe another day, Emily. I have some commitments now. The sparkle in the girl's eyes dimmed a little, but she smiled anyway. Okay. Thanks for the lemonade and cookies. As Emily walked away, hand in hand with her mother, Ryan felt a strange sense of loss, as if something important was slipping through his fingers. Later, while waiting for the video conference to begin, Ryan found himself thinking about the future box that Martha kept for Emily. How many coins would it take to pay for a proper education? How many cakes would Martha have to sell on weekends? The inequality of the situation bothered him more and more. It wasn't just an abstract issue now. It had a face, a voice, an old notebook full of carefully written numbers. After the video conference, Ryan walked to his bedroom window. From there, he could see the small extension of the house where Martha and Emily lived. A light was still on, despite the late hour. He imagined Martha working on a cake order while Emily slept. The next morning, during breakfast, Ryan observed Martha with new eyes. He noticed the small lines of fatigue around her eyes, the way she moved with efficiency, but also with a visible weight on her shoulders. Martha, I'd like to talk to you after breakfast, if possible. The woman paused in the middle of pouring coffee, clearly surprised. Of course, sir. Did I do something wrong? No, not at all. I just want to discuss some adjustments to the house routine. An hour later, Martha timidly entered Ryan's office. He indicated a chair in front of him, an invitation he had never extended before. Martha, you've been working for my family for 6 years, correct? Yes, sir. Since Emily was a few weeks old. And besides this job, I understand you clean other houses and bake cakes to order. Martha blushed slightly. Did Emily mention that? I hope you don't mind, sir. It has never interfered with my duties here and... Ryan raised a hand, gently interrupting her. I'm not bothered, Martha. I'm impressed. And a little ashamed for never having asked about your life before. Martha remained silent, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Emily also mentioned that you visited some schools recently. Yes, sir. I want her to have the best possible opportunities. And those schools, were they suitable for her? Martha hesitated before answering. They are excellent institutions. Emily was fascinated with all of them. But unfortunately, they are out of your financial reach, Ryan completed. Yes, for now, but I'm still saving. In a few years, maybe... Ryan twirled a pen between his fingers, thoughtful. And what if you didn't have to wait a few years? Martha looked at him, confused. I don't understand, sir. Ryan took a deep breath. The idea that had been forming in his mind over the last few days was finally taking concrete shape. Martha, your daughter has an exceptional talent, a talent that shouldn't have to wait a few years to be properly developed. Are you offering to help? Martha's voice was almost a whisper. I'm considering that possibility, yes. But first, I need to better understand the situation. How much is the tuition for the school you consider ideal for Emily? Martha mentioned a figure that, for Ryan, was the equivalent of a dinner at a fine restaurant. For her, it represented weeks of hard work. And besides the tuition, what other costs are involved? Supplies, transportation, uniforms? Martha seemed startled by the questions, but answered in detail. Ryan took notes, calculating mentally. I see. And which would be the ideal school, in your opinion? Westfield Academy has an excellent program for children with an aptitude for math and science. Emily was fascinated with their library. Ryan knew Westfield Academy by reputation, one of the best private schools in the region, with a rigorous curriculum and exceptional opportunities. Martha, he said finally, placing the pen on the desk, I'd like to propose something, not as charity, but as an investment in the future. An investment in potential. As he explained his proposal, Ryan watched Martha's face go from confusion to surprise, and then to restrained emotion. When he finished, she was sitting very straight in her chair, her hands clasped in her lap. Mr. Ryan, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything now. Think about it. Talk to Emily. Martha nodded, still stunned. May I ask why? Why would you do this for us? Ryan reflected for a moment, searching for the right words, because in the last few months, your daughter has taught me something that years of privileged education could not. She showed me the value of human connections, of genuine curiosity, of perseverance in the face of difficulties. He paused. And because maybe, by helping Emily follow her path, I can rediscover something of my own. When Martha left the office, Ryan remained seated for a long time, contemplating what he had just done. It wasn't just about helping a talented child or alleviating the hardships of a dedicated mother. It was about finding a purpose beyond spreadsheets and board meetings. For the first time in years, he felt something he had forgotten, the satisfaction of doing something meaningful, something that truly mattered. His phone rang. It was his father, probably to demand the overdue reports. Ryan looked at the device for a moment, then silenced it. There were more important issues to resolve now. The news of Emily's enrollment at Westfield Academy spread quickly among the mansion's staff. Some were genuinely happy for the girl. Others wondered about their employer's true intentions. Martha, for her part, alternated between immense gratitude and quiet concern about the future. Ryan had just returned from a visit to the school with Martha and Emily, where they finalized the enrollment for the upcoming semester. The smile on the little girl's face as she received her first school uniform was etched in his memory. It was an expression of pure joy that he rarely saw in his business world. Upon entering the mansion, Ryan was surprised by Thomas, the chauffeur. "Mr. Ryan, your father arrived about an hour ago. He's in the main office." Ryan felt his stomach sink. Robert Blackwood rarely visited the mansion without notice, and when he did, it was never for pleasant reasons. "Thank you, Thomas." Adjusting his tie and taking a deep breath, Ryan headed to the office. His father was sitting in the leather armchair, flipping through some company documents with a frown. At 63, Robert Blackwood maintained the imposing posture and severe gaze that intimidated executives far more experienced than Ryan. "Father, I didn't know you were coming today." Robert looked up, his eyes cold and analytical. "Clearly, I tried to reach you 3 times this morning. Where were you?" Ryan placed his briefcase on the desk. "I had an important appointment. More important than the meeting with the Japanese investors you missed yesterday." The accusatory tone left no doubt. His father already knew. "I sent Anderson in my place. He's more familiar with the Asian market expansion project. Anderson is a subordinate, not the vice president of the company." Robert closed the folder with a sharp movement. "By the way, your subordinate casually mentioned you've been absent several afternoons in recent weeks." Something about unavoidable personal commitments. Ryan stood firm, holding his father's gaze. "I'm rearranging some priorities." Robert let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Rearranging priorities? Is that what you call spending your time with the housekeeper's daughter?" So that was it. Somehow his father had found out about Emily. "How did you know about that?" "I'm the president of Blackwood Industries, Ryan. Do you really think I don't know what's going on in my successor's life?" Robert stood up, walking to the window. School enrollments, buying supplies, visits to libraries, all very domestic. Not the behavior I expect from the future leader of a business empire. Ryan felt the familiar tension build in his shoulders. All his life, he had tried to meet his father's expectations, to be the perfect son, the ideal successor. Now, for the first time, there was something he was not willing to sacrifice for that approval. "Emily is an exceptional child. She has a natural talent for math that—" "I'm not interested," Robert interrupted sharply. "There are thousands of talented children in the world. It's not your responsibility to take care of them. Your responsibility is to the company, to the family legacy. I am not neglecting my responsibilities. Aren't you?" Robert picked up a folder from the desk and threw it at Ryan. "Last month's numbers say otherwise. A 3% drop in productivity in your department. 2 acquisition opportunities lost because you weren't available for the initial negotiations." Ryan opened the folder, examining the reports. The numbers were there, undeniable. These are normal market fluctuations, nothing alarming. To you, perhaps. To me, they are signs that you're losing focus. Robert approached, stopping a few steps from Ryan. "You are wasting time with this girl. Focus on the company, that's what matters. The coldness in his father's words was familiar, but for the first time, instead of submission, it provoked an unexpected resistance in Ryan. And what if I believe there are other things that matter besides the company? Robert's face hardened. So that kind of sentimentalism didn't build the Blackwood Empire. We didn't get where we are with charity and good deeds. Maybe that's exactly why we need to change. Robert studied his son for a long moment, as if trying to recognize him. This girl is making you soft, Ryan. She's distracting you from what really matters. Or maybe she's reminding me of what really matters, Ryan retorted, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. There's more to life than quarterly balance sheets, father. Cheap philosophy. Robert grabbed his coat hanging on the chair. I hope you get over this phase quickly. The company needs a strong leader, not a weekend philanthropist. I can be both. No, you can't. Eventually, you'll have to choose. Robert walked to the door, then stopped and turned. By the way, I cancelled your involvement with the girls' school. I informed the institution that there was a misunderstanding and that Blackwood Industries will not be sponsoring the enrollment. Ryan felt as if he had been punched in the gut. You had no right. I have every right when it comes to protecting the family's interests. Robert's gaze was icy. If you want to play the benefactor, do it with your own money, not with resources that will one day belong to the company. With those words, Robert left, leaving Ryan standing in the middle of the office, his hands clenched into frustrated fists. Hours later, Ryan was still in the office, staring out the window at the sunset. His phone rang several times, but he ignored it. His mind was torn between anger at his father's suffocating control and worry about how he would break the news to Emily and Martha. The enrollment had been made in the name of the company's foundation, a suggestion from the finance department to obtain tax benefits. Ryan hadn't imagined his father could interfere so directly. A light knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Martha with an apprehensive expression on her face. Excuse me for bothering you, Mr. Ryan. I just received a call from Westfield Academy. They mentioned something about a cancellation of the enrollment. Ryan felt the weight of guilt. He should have anticipated his father's reaction, should have protected Martha and Emily from this humiliation. Martha, please sit down. We need to talk. As he explained the situation, Ryan watched the woman's face go from confusion to disappointment, and finally to resignation, the expression of someone who was used to seeing opportunities slip away. I understand, sir. I thank you for the intention anyway, she said at last with dignity. Don't worry, Emily will be fine. No, she won't. Ryan stood up, a new determination forming within him. And neither will I if I allow my father to continue controlling every aspect of my life. Martha looked at him, surprised by the vehemence in his voice. What do you intend to do, sir? Ryan walked to his desk and took out his personal checkbook, something he rarely used, preferring corporate cards for virtually all expenses. I'm going to do what I should have done from the beginning. Use my own resources, not the company's. As he filled out the check for the full amount of the school's annual tuition, Ryan felt a strange sense of freedom. It was a small act of rebellion, insignificant to his personal wealth, but symbolically powerful. Martha, tomorrow we will go to Westfield Academy again. And this time no one will be able to interfere. For the first time, Ryan saw tears in Martha's always controlled eyes. Why are you doing this, Mr. Ryan? Your father clearly disapproves. Ryan smiled slightly, remembering Emily's words from weeks ago. Because I'm learning that we can't always let others choose our path. Sometimes we have to make our own choices. The morning after his father's visit, Ryan woke up with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. The sleepless night, filled with reflections on his past and future, had crystallized a resolution in his heart. He would no longer be just a passive observer of life, an executor of others' plans. It was time to act on his own convictions. After breakfast, he asked Thomas to get the car ready. To the office, sir, the chauffeur asked, following the usual routine. No, Thomas, to Westfield Academy, and after that, we'll need to visit a few stores. During the drive, Ryan made several calls. The first was to his personal lawyer, not the company's. He instructed him to prepare documents that would ensure the independence of his philanthropic actions from corporate interference. The second call was to his bank manager, requesting the opening of a specific account for Emily's educational expenses with scheduled deposits for the next 10 years. "I want it to be shielded from any external interference," he explained. "Even if I change my mind in the future, the resources will remain available for her education." The third call was the most difficult. To his assistant at the office, "I will be out today. Cancel all my appointments." "But sir, the meeting with the finance department, reschedule." "Urgent personal matter." As he hung up, he noticed Thomas's surprised look in the rearview mirror. In 6 years, Ryan had never cancelled a day of work for personal reasons. At Westfield Academy, Principal Elaine Parker received him with a cautious expression. The unusual situation from the previous day, a corporate sponsorship suddenly cancelled, had clearly left her apprehensive. "Mr. Blackwood, I must confess I'm a bit confused by recent events." Ryan got straight to the point. "There was a misunderstanding. Mrs. Parker, Emily Hayes's enrollment should not have been tied to the Blackwood Foundation. That was my mistake." He opened his briefcase and took out an envelope. "I would like to pay the full annual tuition with my personal funds. Furthermore, I have established an educational fund that will guarantee the continuation of Emily's studies for at least 10 years, regardless of any future circumstances." The principal examined the documents, visibly impressed by the meticulousness of the arrangements. "This is extraordinarily generous, Mr. Blackwood. May I ask what your relationship is with the Hayes family?" Ryan hesitated, realizing he didn't have a simple answer. What was Emily to him? A protégé? A friend? A reminder of what he himself could have been if he had followed another path? "Emily is an exceptional child who deserves the best opportunities," he finally replied. "Joyce and I am in a position to provide them." Mrs. Parker nodded, not pressing the matter. "Well, considering these guarantees, we would be delighted to welcome Emily for the upcoming semester. Our teaching staff is already eager to work with her, especially after seeing her preliminary aptitude tests. Her mathematical ability is truly remarkable for a 5-year-old. Ryan felt an inexplicable wave of pride. "When can she start?" "The semester officially begins in 3 weeks, but we can arrange for an early integration so she can get accustomed to the environment before formal classes begin." "Excellent. I would also like to discuss the matter of daily transportation." Upon leaving the school an hour later, Ryan had a complete plan. Not only was Emily's education guaranteed, but also her daily transport, school supplies, uniforms, and access to extracurricular activities. Nothing would be left to chance. The next stop was a large bookstore in the city center. Ryan had never been inside before. He usually had his assistants buy the books he needed. Walking among the shelves, personally choosing titles for Emily, brought a strangely intimate satisfaction. He selected math books appropriate for her age, but also books on science, history, art, and children's literature. He wanted her to have a broad education, not just a technical one. When he reached the checkout, the clerk's eyes widened at the stack of more than 30 volumes. "A gift for a special child?" he asked, as he scanned the barcodes. "Yes," Ryan replied, surprised by the ease of the answer. "Very special." The last stop was at a school supply store. Ryan had never bought a notebook or a backpack for himself. Those things simply appeared when needed, provided by efficient assistants. Now, faced with the variety of options, he felt almost lost. "Can I help you, sir?" a saleswoman offered. "I need, well, everything, really, for a 5-year-old girl who is starting at a new school." The saleswoman smiled. "The first day of school is always special. Your daughter must be very excited." Ryan didn't correct the misunderstanding. There was something comforting in the saleswoman's assumption, as if, for a brief moment, he could imagine a life different from his own. An hour later, the trunk of the Mercedes was full. Thomas, always discreet, asked no questions about the radical change in his boss's routine, merely helping with the packages. "Home, sir." "Yes, Thomas, home." During the drive, Ryan mentally rehearsed how he would break the news to Martha and Emily. He wanted to do it the right way, without embarrassing them or making them feel they owed him anything. This was not an act of charity in his mind, but an investment, not only in Emily's future, but also in his own personal redemption. Upon arriving at the mansion, he asked Martha and Emily to meet him in the living room, a rarely used room, except for formal receptions. While he waited, he arranged some of the gifts on the coffee table, saving others for gradual reveals in the coming days. He didn't want to overwhelm them with everything at once. Martha entered first, with Emily close behind, clutching her inseparable old notebook. Both looked apprehensive. "Mr. Ryan, you wanted to see us?" Martha asked. Casting a curious glance at the packages on the table, Ryan gestured to the sofa. "Please, have a seat. I have news." Emily climbed onto the sofa, her blue eyes fixed on the colorful packages. Martha remained tense, as if expecting another disappointment. "Yesterday," Ryan began, "there was a setback with the enrollment at Westfield Academy, but this morning I resolved the situation." Martha's eyes widened. "You resolved it?" "Yes. Emily is officially enrolled. She can start attending the school on an adjustment basis next week, if you agree." Emily looked at her mother, then at Ryan, not fully understanding what was happening. "I'm going to the school with the stars on the ceiling," she asked, referring to the planetarium they had seen during their visit. "Yes, Emily?" "The school with the stars on the ceiling." Ryan picked up one of the packages and handed it to her. "This is just the beginning." With hesitant fingers, Emily opened the wrapping, revealing a navy blue backpack with silver details, the colors of Westfield Academy. Inside, there was a matching pencil case and the first of many books. "Is it for me?" she asked, her voice small with surprise. "All for you, for your new beginning." Martha covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes welling up. Emily ran her fingers over the fabric of the backpack, as if touching something too precious to be real. "Mommy always said that one day I would go to a real school," she murmured. "But I thought it would be when I was big." Ryan sat in the armchair across from them, leaning forward to be closer. "Emily, remember when you told me you wanted to be a mathematician or a scientist or a teacher when you grew up?" She nodded. "This is the first step in that direction. Westfield Academy has excellent teachers, labs, a library. Everything you need to develop your talent." Martha finally found her voice. "Mr. Ryan, I don't know how to thank you. After yesterday, I thought..." "Yesterday was a mistake, Martha. My mistake, for not doing things the right way from the start." Ryan addressed Emily again. "There's only one condition." Emily hugged the backpack to her chest, suddenly apprehensive. "What condition? That you promise to always do your best? Not to please me or the teachers or anyone else, but because that's how we honor our talents." The little girl frowned, considering his words seriously. "I promise," she said finally. "I'm going to do math so hard that no one will believe I was the one who solved it." Ryan smiled. "I'm sure you will." In the hours that followed, he explained to Martha all the arrangements he had made: the protected educational fund, the daily transportation service, the extra tutoring classes if they were needed. He had thought of every detail to ensure that nothing, not even his own father, could interfere with Emily's educational future. "This is very generous, Mr. Ryan," Martha said, when they were finally alone after Emily had gone to show her new treasures to Mrs. Morris, the housekeeper. "I'm afraid we can never repay you." "I don't expect repayment, Martha. In fact, if we were to calculate debts, I'm probably the one who is indebted." "You, sir." "How so?" Ryan looked out at the courtyard through the window, where Emily was showing her new backpack to Thomas, who smiled with genuine kindness at the little girl. "Emily reminded me of things I had forgotten. About purpose, about making a difference in someone's life, about looking beyond the numbers on a spreadsheet." In the days that followed, the Blackwood mansion witnessed a subtle but profound transformation. Ryan began to work more from home, telling the office he was implementing a new remote management system. In reality, he wanted to be present to oversee the preparations for the start of Emily's school life. He took her personally to see the school before classes began. He walked with her through the hallways, introduced her to the teachers, showed her the library where she could spend hours exploring new knowledge. "It's so big," Emily whispered, clutching Ryan's hand as they entered the main auditorium. "What if I get lost?" "You won't get lost," he assured her. "And if you do, there will always be someone to help. Besides, you're too smart to stay lost for long." On the first official day of school, Ryan surprised everyone by announcing that he would take Emily personally. "That's not necessary, sir," Martha protested. "The transportation service you hired is excellent." "I know. But some moments are too important to be delegated, don't you think?" During the drive, Emily was unusually quiet, clutching the strap of her new backpack. "Are you nervous?" Ryan asked. "A little," she admitted. "What if the other kids don't like me? What if they think I'm weird for liking numbers so much?" Ryan smiled, recognizing in those words the same fears he had had in his childhood. "Being different isn't a bad thing, Emily. It's what makes you special, and I'm sure you'll find friends who will appreciate that." When they arrived at the school, Ryan walked her to the classroom entrance. He crouched down to be at her level. "Remember, be brave, be curious, and above all, be yourself." Emily nodded solemnly, then, on an impulse, gave him a quick hug before running into the classroom. Ryan stood in the hallway for a moment, feeling the warmth of that small hug. At the end of that first day, it was Martha who picked Emily up. But the next morning, the little girl arrived early in the mansion's kitchen, where Ryan was having his coffee. "Mr. Ryan, I have to tell you about yesterday." For nearly 20 minutes, Emily talked non-stop about her teacher, her new classmates, the science class where they saw an experiment with magnets, and how surprised she was when the math teacher gave her more advanced problems than the other students. "And there's a girl named Lily, who also likes numbers. Not as much as me, but she has a pencil case with equations drawn on it that's really cool." Ryan listened, answering the occasional questions, laughing at the little girl's sharp observations. For the first time in years, he wasn't worried about time, pending meetings or overdue reports. He was simply present, absorbing Emily's contagious joy. "It sounds like it was an excellent first day," he commented when she finally paused for breath. "It was the best day of my life," Emily declared with the absolute certainty that only children possess. "Thank you, Mr. Ryan." The simplicity of the gratitude hit him with unexpected force. It wasn't the elaborate words of executives after a profitable deal, or the calculated compliments of subordinates seeking favors. It was just the sincere joy of a child whose world had just expanded enormously. "You're welcome, Emily," he replied, surprised by the emotion in his own voice. "You're very welcome." The months passed quickly. Autumn gave way to winter, and winter to spring. With the changing seasons, other transformations, more subtle but equally profound, were taking place in the Blackwood mansion and among its inhabitants. Emily flourished at Westfield Academy. Her mathematical skills, once confined to the pages of an old notebook, now had space to fully develop. The school reports that arrived regularly highlighted not only her exceptional talent with numbers, but also her insatiable curiosity, her kindness to classmates, and her determination in the face of challenges. Martha had also changed. With her daughter's education secured and a significant raise in her salary, another discreet initiative by Ryan, she had given up her extra jobs. The shadows of fatigue under her eyes had disappeared, replaced by a renewed glow. Occasionally, Ryan would hear her humming as she worked, something unthinkable months ago, but the most profound change, perhaps, had occurred in Ryan himself. In his office at the company, a photograph now occupied space on his desk, Emily smiling on her first day of school next to a visibly proud Ryan. When his father saw it during an unexpected visit, he limited himself to a disapproving look followed by an icy silence. Ryan didn't care. His father's silence was preferable to the constant criticism, and anyway, Ryan's priorities had changed. He remained competent in his work, perhaps even more so than before, but now he operated with a new sense of purpose. The spreadsheets and charts were no longer just abstract numbers chasing ever-increasing profits. They represented people, lives, possibilities. Just as Emily had humanized mathematics for him, Her influence had humanized business for Ryan. On a particularly pleasant Saturday afternoon, Ryan cancelled a game of golf with company executives, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Instead, he was sitting on a bench in the mansion's garden, watching Emily, who, a few feet away, was drawing geometric shapes with colored chalk on the stone path. "Look, Mr. Ryan, it's a fractal," she exclaimed, pointing to an intricate pattern of triangles within triangles. Mrs. Wilson showed us in advanced math class. "They go on forever, getting smaller and smaller." Ryan smiled, admiring not just the drawing, but Emily's genuine enthusiasm. Now, 6 years old, she had grown a few inches, and her blonde hair was longer, tied back in a neat braid. But her light-colored eyes maintained the same curious sparkle that had captivated him from the beginning. "It's impressive, Emily. You've understood the concept perfectly." She dropped the chalk and came to sit next to him on the bench, her legs dangling, not reaching the ground. Mrs. Wilson said, "I'll be able to participate in the older students' science fair. I'm going to do a project on mathematical patterns in nature. I'm sure it will be the best project at the fair." Emily tilted her head, thoughtful. "I don't know. Lucy is doing one about volcanoes that erupt with real lava. It's hard to compete with lava." Ryan laughed, surprised at how easily he did it now. Before Emily, laughter was rare in his life, reserved for social occasions where it was more of a formality than a genuine expression of joy. "You know, Emily, I think you're right, but I bet your project will be the most elegant. And in mathematics, elegance is worth more than spectacle." She smiled, pleased with the compliment. For a few moments, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the flowers that were beginning to bloom with the spring. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the fragrant air and a peace he had never found in boardrooms or the exclusive restaurants he used to frequent. "Emily," he said finally, "do you remember that night, almost a year ago, when you came into my office and helped me with that complicated calculation?" The girl nodded. "Yes, I remember. Mommy was mad at me afterward. I was thinking about that recently. Do you know what I realized?" "What?" Ryan looked up at the clear sky, then back at Emily. "That calculation was the best problem I ever solved in my life." Emily frowned, confused. "But I solved it, not you." "Exactly," Ryan smiled. "It was the best problem because I wasn't the one who solved it. You were." Understanding slowly dawned on the girl's face, followed by a smile. "Because we became friends after that." "Yes. And because that moment changed many things." Ryan paused, searching for simple words to express complex feelings. "Before that night, I lived a different life, full of things, but empty of meaning." Emily nodded seriously, as if she perfectly understood what he meant, although Ryan suspected the true depth would only be clear to her years later. "You seemed sad that night," she commented. "You smile more now. You noticed that, did you?" "Everyone noticed. Thomas told Mrs. Morris that you even said good morning to the gardener the other day, and Mommy said you seem less—" What was the word? She frowned, trying to remember. "Less reserved." Ryan laughed again. "I think that's a fair description. I was quite reserved, or maybe just lost." A bird landed near them, pecking at something on the ground. Emily watched it in silence for a moment before asking, "And are you found now?" The simplicity of the question hit Ryan full force. That was it exactly. He had found himself, not in the corporate hallways or the professional achievements his father valued so much, but in the unexpected relationship with this little girl and in the rediscovery of his own humanity. "Yes, Emily, I think I'm found now." She smiled, satisfied, as if she had solved another complex math problem. Then, without warning, she took Ryan's hand and squeezed it lightly. "I'm glad we solved that problem together." The moment was silent but full of meaning. Ryan felt an emotion he couldn't name, something between gratitude, protection, and a deep sense of purpose. In his world of precise terms and exact definitions, there was no word for what he felt. Maybe, he thought, Some emotions simply couldn't be calculated or categorized. "Me too, Emily," he finally replied. "Me too." The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with that intimacy that only exists when words become unnecessary. In the distance, Martha watched the scene from the kitchen window, a soft smile on her lips. If someone had told her a year ago that her little Emily would be able to completely transform the serious and distant Mr. Blackwood, she would have laughed in disbelief. Now, she saw this transformation as a small daily miracle. Ryan glanced at his watch, a habit he had never completely abandoned, but not with the anxiety of before. Time was no longer his enemy, a resource to be optimized at all costs. It was just a measure, a context for moments like this. "What do you think about visiting the planetarium tomorrow?" he asked. "I heard they have a new exhibit on mathematics and astronomy." Emily's eyes lit up. "Can we really?" Lucy said she went there with her parents and saw how comets follow paths that can be calculated with equations. Then it settled. Tomorrow, it's you, me, and the stars. Emily jumped off the bench, excited, and ran to tell her mother. Ryan watched her go, her small body overflowing with energy and possibilities. He thought of all the doors that were opening for her now, all the opportunities her talent deserved. But he also thought about the doors she had opened for him. Doors that led not to boardrooms or luxurious offices, but to a different kind of wealth. The wealth of genuine human connections, of purpose, of meaning. Ryan leaned back on the bench, feeling the spring sun warm his face. The Blackwood mansion, once so silent and sterile, now seemed to vibrate with life. And for the first time in years, Ryan felt truly a part of it, not as an owner or an employer, but as a person who had finally learned to value something beyond material success. That calculation, on an ordinary work night, had truly been the best equation of his life, not for the numbers Emily had solved, but for what that moment had unleashed in both of them. A human equation whose result was far greater than the sum of its parts. The Blackwood Industries board meeting was tense. Robert Blackwood, sitting at the head of the table, watched with disapproval as his son presented the project that had occupied the last 3 months of his life. The Blackwood Foundation for Exceptional Talents is not just a philanthropic arm, Ryan explained, with a confidence that surprised even the oldest board members. It is an investment in the future of our company and our community. The slides showed a comprehensive program, scholarships for talented low-income youth, mentorship programs, paid internships, research labs open to the community, a complete restructuring of the company's social responsibility policy, which until then had been limited to one-off donations to popular causes. "And how much will this cost the shareholders?" Robert asked, his sharp voice breaking the silence that followed the presentation. Ryan held his gaze firmly. 5% of the annual profit. An investment that, according to our projections, will return in quality of workforce, innovation, and corporate image over the next 10 years. 5% is money thrown away, Robert retorted. Shareholders expect profit maximization, not charity. Ryan smiled slightly. It's not charity, Father. It's long-term vision. Something you always taught me to value. The reference to Robert's own words caught the old businessman off guard. There were quiet chuckles around the table. Furthermore, Ryan continued, moving to the next slide, I have already implemented a pilot program over the last 3 months with my own resources. The results are promising. The images showed young people in labs, modern classrooms, mentoring sessions. In the center of one of the photos, almost imperceptible if one didn't know where to look, was Emily, now almost 7, explaining a theorem to other children in a math workshop. The board will have the final say, naturally, Ryan concluded. But I believe this is the moment for Blackwood Industries to redefine what it means to be a leading company in the 21st century. To Robert's surprise, the board voted unanimously in favor of the project. At the end of the meeting, several directors approached Ryan, not only to congratulate him on the initiative, but to share personal stories, a brilliant nephew unable to afford college, an underserved community near the factory, memories of their own struggles to get an education. Ryan listened with genuine attention, taking notes of names, promising to look into cases, establishing human connections that went beyond immediate business interests. This was a different Ryan from the cold, calculating executive everyone knew, a man who now looked people in the eye when he spoke, who asked about families, who remembered personal details. Robert watched from a distance, his face an impenetrable mask. When everyone had left, he approached his son. "I don't recognize you anymore," he said, without preamble. Ryan put his documents back in his briefcase. "I would say I'm recognizing myself for the first time, Father. That girl really changed you." It wasn't a question, but a statement. The first time Robert had openly acknowledged Emily's influence. "Emily reminded me of something important," Ryan replied, "that behind every number on our spreadsheets, there are people. And that the true value of our work is not just in the profits we generate, but in the impact we have." Robert shook his head, caught between irritation and a reluctant admiration. "You were always stubborn, just like your mother." Ryan smiled. Coming from his father, that was almost a compliment. "Thank you for the vote of confidence today. I know you could have blocked the project." Robert adjusted his tie, uncomfortable with the moment of vulnerability. "The board seems to trust your vision. We'll see if the results justify this enthusiasm." It was the closest to an approval Ryan could expect. The changes weren't limited to the company. In the Blackwood mansion, a quiet revolution was taking place. The staff, once treated as efficient, invisible cogs, now received substantial benefits: full health insurance, education funds for their children, significant raises, more flexible hours. The house, once an austere and formal environment, had become more welcoming. Laughter was heard in the hallways. Occasional dinners brought Ryan and the staff together at the same table, an unthinkable idea months before. Thomas, the chauffeur, once commented to Martha that he had worked for wealthy families for 30 years, but had never been treated like a complete human being until now. On a Sunday afternoon, Ryan organized a small event in the mansion's garden to celebrate the first anniversary of Emily's admission to Westfield Academy. There was cake, simple decorations, and small gifts for the birthday girl, not just from Ryan, but from all the staff, who had grown fond of the bright girl and her positive influence on their boss. "You've become the darling of the mansion," Ryan joked, watching Emily open her presents with reverent care, thanking each one with the same sincerity. "It's because I'm very nice," she replied with comical seriousness, drawing laughter from those present. Later, when everyone had dispersed and only Ryan, Martha, and Emily remained in the garden, Martha expressed the gratitude that overflowed in her heart. "Mr. Ryan, I never imagined my daughter would have so many opportunities. The school, the books, the extra classes. And now this foundation that will help other children like her." Ryan watched Emily, who was running across the lawn chasing butterflies, her light blue dress fluttering in the wind. "You know, Martha, I often say that I helped Emily find her path. But the truth is she helped me find mine." Martha smiled, understanding perfectly. "She has that effect on people." "She always has." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes I wonder who really helped whom." Martha's answer came without hesitation. "I think it was a bit of both, wasn't it? The best relationships usually are." Ryan agreed. "Emily says we're like a balanced equation. Both sides are equal but composed of different elements." Martha laughed. Her and her math analogies. Watching Emily, now lying on the grass contemplating the clouds, Ryan felt a quiet certainty. The journey that had begun with a simple calculation on a work night would continue for many years. Emily would grow, develop her potential, perhaps become the brilliant mathematician she dreamed of being. And he would be there, not just as a benefactor or mentor, but as someone whose own life had been recalculated and redirected by the encounter with that extraordinary child. Ryan Blackwood, the cold and distant executive,